Thanks for pressing play. This is Saints of Cinema. I'm Timothy Winterstein.
And I'm Jay Winterstein.
You can get a hold of us. You can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram. You can send us an email, saintsofcinemapod@gmail.com. And you should go to our website, saintsofcinema.com. And there you can find all our episodes up to this one. This one happens to be episode 87. And as you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, we have a special guest. Always better. I think it always goes better when we have guests, Jay.
Less we talk.
There may be various reasons for that. I'm not saying what it is. Our last episode was a preview of the Newport Beach Film Festival, and actually our guest, Scott Stiegemeyer, Dr. Scott Stiegemeyer from Concordia University in Irvine, California. And maybe, Scott, tell us a little bit about what you teach there.
Yeah, I teach theology. I'm in the theology department, but my area of specialization is ethics. So I teach a couple different types of ethics courses, just a general one, but I teach bioethics or medical ethics and a couple of versions of that, but also a little theology, church history, doctrine.
And if you've listened to our show for a while, you know that Scott has been on. We've had some of my favorite conversations over. We talked about horror films. We talked about horror films in general, and then we talked about the amusement park, which took us two times to get right. And then we talked about After Yang, which is another good discussion about sort of what it means to be human. And so today, this episode, we're going to talk about the new movie Frankenstein, Guillermo Del Toro's, which I think Jay and I mentioned was one of the films we were looking forward to for the second half of 2025. And Scott, what I was going to say is Scott was at the film festival for the horror block, and I was curious what any films stick out to you there from those films that what?
Oh, you put me on the spot. Now I can't remember.
Okay. So there were, let's see, we had one that was about music and sort of utilizing other people's, called Loud. That was one of them.
Is that the one where, like, through the audio it was like a demon?
Yeah, she was adding a scream into the. I think the last one was the very last one was Bidet, which was sort of a horror comedy. And then James Brylowski was out at the festival. Great to get to know him. Also, Irish Sun, sort of dealing with how people view those who don't seem like, what it means to be part of a country, a citizen of a country. An Irish film. And then off the top of my head, since I didn't look it up, I don't know, anything that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I liked Loud.
I'm putting you on the spot. Yeah.
No, that I just needed a little refresher. Loud was my favorite, and I talked about that a lot with my wife and other people afterwards.
Interesting.
Yeah, was the director was there, right, to answer questions after? Was it the director? Or
yeah, Adam Asimov, I believe was. Yeah.
So he mentioned that he was somewhat inspired by The Conversation, other movies, The Conversation and Blowout. Yeah, but there's another movie that came to mind when I was watching it called Pontypool. You know that? It's a Canadian movie.
It's a horror movie?
Yeah.
It's been on my list. I don't think I've seen it though.
It's similar because in Pontypool, a virus, like a zombie virus, is communicated through language. It's like a virus is attached to words. And that's kind of what was going on in that movie, but it was like a demonic power attached to the voice or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one really had to do, so I mean, how far are we willing to go to use other people's either trauma or what happens to them to make art, and specifically to make our art better? It's sort of an abuse, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Exploiting.
You're exploiting.
Exploitation.
Yeah. Other people's suffering for your own benefit. And so, yeah. Okay. I just curious on the spot without warning you ahead of time. So, but we did warn you about Frankenstein, so you did watch that. Jay or Scott, initial sort of overall thoughts about the film?
Yeah, so I watched this. It was our closing night film at the film festival. I say watched, quote unquote, because it's the end of a week. I was nodding off a few times. I did have to watch it again. It just came out on Netflix, so it was a nice refresher, and I realized that, yeah, I missed a few things. Um, one of the great things, I mean, one of the things I did see in the theater, the set design is incredible. And I think this is one of the things that Guillermo Del Toro is kind of known for, is creating these beautiful, lavish set designs, and has great characters. The dresses that Mia Goth, or the actress in the film, really, really amazing, and especially in this huge house and these castles. And really, yeah, just incredible. The colors that they use, all really, really nice. And it's really great to see a film like that on the big screen and really get the sense of the visuals for that. So I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, and it starts off with this huge ship and ice, and yeah, so it starts off strong, and then yeah, it's got a great little story to it. It's visually it's really good. I mean, so when you're talking about the things that stand out, so that's probably the biggest thing that stands out right off the bat.
I saw a brief interview where he's talking about the colors and specifically which colors he uses for which parts of and for which characters.
Like red. Red's a big one.
And then you sort of have like some green and blue for Mia Goth, sort of like nature things. But honestly, if it doesn't win like set design and or costumes,
Yeah, because Jacob Elordi plays the monster. I heard he had to sit. It was 10 hours,
11 hours or something when they when they see his whole body,
right?
Yeah. So I don't know, Scott. Anything else that stood out for you in terms of the whole, at least initially?
Yeah, it really is not related to the book very well. I mean, other than the basic premise, it's really different than that.
It's been a
that's what's been a
it's been a while since I've read it. The general sort of right. So I think in the book he's writing letters. Is that, or it's a journal?
I think it starts off.
It does. The novel starts off like in an epistolary, writing letters back and forth, but then Mary Shelley kind of gives up on that at a certain point. Just relates someone's narrative.
Yeah. But you do get both perspectives. You get Victor's perspective and you get the quote monster's perspective. But there are some differences in terms of how it kind of comes about, who he's working with, and sort of the overall story. But I was impressed. Even though it's a little bit longer, I thought it was pretty cohesive, the film.
I think one of the first things I heard of someone had their complaint was that it was too long. But I mean, there's some parts, I guess, in the center that get a little long, and maybe it comes a little quick at the end. The ending comes a little quick, but I don't know. I've heard those things, but I didn't really have an issue with the length. And apparently, all films are at least 2.5 hours now. So I guess that's the standard that they've set, so that they have to keep going with.
I thought it was a little long, but it didn't bother me. It didn't make me mad.
Yeah.
I saw somebody say it was a little bloated, but that was not my feeling. Even if it is a little long, I didn't feel like it was sort of just like, just sort of extra, a bunch of extra weight on it or something. I mean, I thought it moved pretty well. I thought the pacing was, maybe there are a couple moments, but I didn't really feel like they were going beyond sort of establishing sort of the environment or the characters or something.
I guess I only went through like half the book, so I guess just hearing from you two who have read it, I know, Tim, it's been a few years, but what are your initial reactions in comparing the original story versus the film? Is there one you preferred more than the other, or are there themes that you liked in one that didn't show up in the other that you would have liked to have seen?
I mean, I like the novel better.
Yeah.
I think that it's more tragic. It doesn't have a happy ending. Not quite like the movie does. That actually surprised me. Is that they have this mutual absolution scene, and it's like, well, that doesn't happen. But okay, and
that's a choice.
Yeah, that's a choice. And there's the monster or the creature in the monster is much more tragic in the novel. I mean, he's murdering children and stuff like this, and blaming other other people for it, framing people for murder and innocent people, all this to get revenge on his father or his creator. And then the whole marriage thing, and he wants to have Victor produce a mate for him. That gets put into the movie, but it's so much more powerful the way it's described in the novel. That I don't know. For me, that there was just a lot more drama and power and impact in the story as it is in the book.
Yeah, I mean, the general themes of sort of that, and maybe some of this is colored for me by, I really like Dean Koontz's Frankenstein novel series, where he sort of puts the idea of it that that humans want to play the creator, but they're not really qualified. He sort of puts that into a modern day kind of context. And so what happened, so maybe some of what I think about it is colored by that, because I mean, simply the idea that his goal, which I think comes across clearly in the movie, is that he has had this experience with death and he wants to overcome it, which is a very relevant theme, and maybe getting more and more so. And I don't know how much of that sort of is. I'm not sure how much of that is in Mary Shelley's mind, and maybe just because, or maybe it's just become more relevant, that idea that we can someday overcome death, which is a very instrumental use of science, enlightenment type idea, that I think is, I don't know if we learned from it.
No, I mean, she's very forward thinking in that way, right? Because she's almost like predicting how we'll have this techno utopian kind of attitude like we have today, where we can use technology and science and progressive education to solve all of humanity's problems. And Victor has that hubris, right? At least for regarding death, he thinks he can just overcome that. But they're just, for me, that's a huge part of it, of course. But there's other questions about human nature, and that it's hard to put into a film. You can't ever translate all these things into one movie. Maybe a series. I haven't read the Dean Koontz series. That's pretty cool.
So that's kind of like the main theme of the film, and I think that's their tagline, right? It's only monsters play God. So that's kind of like the main idea, kind of this book and the film, is that Victor Frankenstein chooses to kind of step out of his lane, so to speak, and play God. Basically that's not what his role here, and then we kind of see how it goes bad for him when he tries that. And I guess that's the idea, is that when people step out of their lane and try to do things that they're not qualified or that they're not supposed to be doing.
Well, in the novel, Frankenstein the monster, not Frankenstein the monster, Frankenstein's monster is much more philosophical and much more articulate and much more intelligent. And I don't know why you would make him the brute again until later. He does kind of become vocal, but he's reading Paradise Lost and seeing himself in it and seeing Victor in it, and he's sympathizing with the devil in it. And in the novel, he kills these people to try and get revenge upon his maker. And but it's asking questions. I mean, to me, it's asking questions about not just about what does it mean to be human, but and it does talk about the overreach of science, so it's very modern in that way. But it's also just this sense of, are we by nature good, or are we by nature fallen? Because the monster says, I think he mentions it in the movie too, that I was made evil. I became evil because of bad experiences. And that's very clear in the novel. He's like tabula rasa at first. He's like blank slate. But because people mistreat him, because he looks ugly, so people are afraid of him and they mistreat him. And that turns him into this vengeful monster. And he goes from being this philosophical, wise, almost potentially benevolent being to being this killer because of how people treat him. So there's all kinds of interesting questions of identity and how we treat people that look different.
And that does come across, I think, a little bit in the movie, where he wants to be, he sort of is talking, I want to be part of this family. I want to, and that there's even more, I think, in the book about that, when they see him, or when the little girl sees him, I think, in the book, maybe. And so that he becomes disillusioned even more so with humanity in the movie. And I think this is part of Del Toro's point, is that that Victor becomes more and more a monster, and the monster becomes more and more human. There's a different kind of movement in terms of the movie that way, and he and Del Toro sort of makes that apparent by the clothing that Victor is in, and how he becomes, his leg is has a and so he's limping, and he's got this kind of, his clothing becomes more and more ragged as he goes through the film, and he's sort of pursuing this.
Yeah, it is interesting because the monster like wanting to be good at first, and he just kind of, it's almost like he just kind of succumbs and says, it's everything that's been put against me. It's not that I'm fighting against, is people are treating me this way. And even in the film, I think Victor, right after he's made, he's locked up from the get-go. He's like chained up and saying, you can't go anywhere. It's like he's not even given a chance, and he doesn't even really see goodness and kindness until he's, in that barn, and he sees it in other people, the old man, and he's like, oh, see. And then the old guy, treats him with kindness, and then that's when he kind of realizes that there is some goodness out there that I could
Because he
potentially
can't see,
be
though.
good.
Yeah, the blind man.
Right.
Because in the novel, Victor abandons him right away. He doesn't try to tutor him and then get frustrated. He abandons him right away because he's ugly. I mean, it's very clear. It's describing him as like, oh, it was repulsive. So he just abandons him, pretends he doesn't exist until years later when he shows up.
Yeah, that's true. That's about as far as I made it in the book. And it kind of just, from what I recall from the book, it does seem very abrupt because he's, there's like this lead up to him, and why he wants to create this person. And it's kind of selfish, I think, is when he's creating this monster. He's not doing it because he's like, I want to create this life and then give them, all this happiness. And it's kind of more about, he wants to push these boundaries, and he wants the monster or whatever he creates. I mean, he doesn't think he's going to be a monster when he's making him, but he's going to be thankful to me and for what I've done and for giving him life. But then once he does it, it's kind of just sudden, and he's like, oh, that's not really what I had in mind. All right, well,
Yeah,
Godspeed,
and it's for
man.
different reasons in the book and the movie. He won't learn. He won't say anything more than Victor, so he's not capable of it. So he's going to destroy it. But
he doesn't. It's like he doesn't even give him a chance, though. I don't know. I thought he deserved more
Elizabeth
of a chance.
does.
Yeah, and did you think it was weird that there's kind of a romantic energy between Elizabeth and the creature? I mean, I thought that was an interesting choice.
Yeah, romantic. I mean, I wonder though. I mean, that does seem to be sort of behind Mary Shelley's thing. That romantic in the sense of the kind of historical.
No, I meant.
Yeah, no, I know.
Lovey-dovey.
Yeah. No, I know. I know what you mean. But I wonder if maybe there is a little bit of sort of that. She's constantly with bugs and butterflies and nature. That seems to be intentional in terms of the colors of the things she's wearing. I wonder if there's something about that she keeps a distance from Victor, even at the beginning when she's sort of joking with him, even when they're dancing and whatever, that he seems to misunderstand. And so I wonder if maybe, I think it could go either way, but it could go weird. Or is it just that she simply cares for creatures? I don't know.
Yeah, I have to look at those scenes again. I got kind of almost like a I'm in love with you kind of thing going on with the creature. Whereas in the book, he kills her. I mean, and she's actually getting married to Victor. And maybe I'm just too hung up because I remember the novel so well. It's like, I just think the novel has a lot more punch. A lot of times the movies spend a lot more time on the technology and the means of creating, whereas the book really doesn't. It spends a lot of time on what's the product, what is this thing, and how does he behave.
And is it Victor's niece or nephew that the creature kills at the very beginning of the book?
Well, he kills.
Isn't there a baby in a carriage or something? It's been, like I said, it's been a little while.
No, he doesn't kill right away. It's many years later because he disappears, and Victor doesn't see him for a long time. And he kills his brother William, who's a small child in the story, kills him, and frames
Maybe
like
that's what I'm.
a much beloved servant, a young teenage girl, frames her for the murder, and she gets hung.
It's all coming back to me now.
Yeah. But don't you remember? I mean, he asked for Victor to create him a bride. Well, that's in the movie, but then in the book he actually does, and then he destroys it. Right? He gets it right there and about to give her to him, and then he kills it because I don't want you to procreate. And the monster says, "I will be with you on your wedding night." Okay. And he shows up and kills her at their wedding day.
You're right. Yep. It's been, see, this is the problem. I should have reviewed the book right now. But I sort of had the general themes, but some of those details. So I appreciate that. Yeah, there is it's almost as if, so then those similar things, events, or scenes in the novel, they've been rearranged in the book, and because of that rearrangement, they've got different meanings really for the whole.
Like, I guess in the film, I think having Elizabeth, I think it just goes to just showing more of the creature's character, right? I mean, just showing that he's more towards the caring, and that, you know, he's capable of love, and he's also capable of being loved. And I think that's just kind of just goes to show his character, which is why they probably portrayed it that way in the film.
Do you think then that there's meant to be sort of a push and pull between Victor and Elizabeth, where the monster, the creature, sort of between those two poles? That's almost, is he going to kill? Is he going to be, you know, that though Victor and Elizabeth seem to be the two poles of sort of human nature. And so you have one who is very caring and gentle, and she gets caught up in this, that, you know, she, the innocent, and then you have one who is not at all, and who does sort of everything selfishly, and almost projects everything that he is onto others. So he projects onto Elizabeth his desire, he projects onto the monster his violence and hatred and bitterness and sort of loneliness. But yeah, I don't know. I'm talking off the top of my head.
I also think that maybe if they showed, because maybe there's certain things that you can get away with back when, was it 1800s when Shelley was writing this, that I think maybe an audience wouldn't go for now. Like if you showed like the kind of killings that were in the book, like that might be too much to have this character like redeemed at the end, which is kind of where they want it to go, you know, to have him, they have their little "I forgive you" moment at the end. And I think they really want, you know, the audience to really come around towards the creature. I think that's the idea. And maybe if they showed some of these killings that are portrayed in the book, maybe that would have been too much. Like audience can't overcome that and get on board with him.
Yeah, I think you're right. If your plan is to have that reconciliation at the end, then I guess that would make sense, right? If he's so evil, if he's just so complete, a child murderer,
yeah,
you know, just that scene probably wouldn't happen so easily. But in the book, they don't reconcile. The monster, they don't. I mean, there is no kind of I'm sorry. That doesn't happen.
I forgive you.
Yeah, it's like, what? I mean, Victor dies while he's telling the story, and the monster finds him as a dead man, and then grieves, and then goes off and implies that he's going to go destroy himself in the Arctic. So, I mean, he grieves the death of his father, but they don't have any kind of mutual reconciliation. And then when the monster in the film frees the boat right from the ice, like this last act of grand benevolence or something. Right. This is a different
because
story.
Because the captain lets him go. And I mean, one other thing that we haven't talked about yet is the sort of, you know, speaking of the way that Victor sort of is the creature's father, so to speak. And there are a comment by Elizabeth's uncle. I forget what's his name in the film. Which I don't. Is he in the book? Is that character in the book? I don't.
No, because Elizabeth is Victor's sister. Well, his cousin who was raised with him.
Okay. Yeah. And but there's somebody else in the book who helps him sort of get going, like a friend, right? Isn't it a friend from the university?
Yeah.
They kind of work on it together at first.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the scenes with Victor and his father, there is sort of that. I mean, there's sort of that daddy issue thing where, like, he's such a brute to Victor that this is the way Victor acts toward the creature. I mean, there's certainly the parallel, which is, but there is stuff about. He sort of says, what the uncle says something like, he calls him our Adam, or something,
Mm-hmm.
our new Adam, something like that. So I mean, so those kinds of themes running through, and certainly with Paradise Lost in sort of the background, which comes up. There's sort of a reference. I don't know. It's not really dwelled upon in the movie, but there's a reference to, hey, there's that book at the end of the shelf or whatever. But certainly, if you know Paradise Lost at all, there's going to be a much more sort of tragic sense to the situation, and where the creature identifies himself, and Adam in general. Like there's a sense in which, even if he's created good, we know that's not gonna last.
Well, and in Shelley's novel, not only does the creature identify himself with Adam, he's like, I'm the man. But unlike the Genesis story, my father rejects me. He also identifies with Satan, and he's kind of saying, well, I am now going to be the vengeful spirit, right? He identifies with the rebellion of Satan.
Yeah, and there is that jealousy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. Good.
I mean, there's that jealousy of the relationship that other people have, that human beings in their they normally have, and he can't have it because he's so disgusting and horrifying to these human beings, with whom he might otherwise, if only they'd give him a chance, is sort of the feeling I had,
Mm-hmm,
right? Like, if they would just get to know him a little.
Right.
And then, and going back to the companion thing, Adam got Eve.
Right.
Yeah.
Adam's
well, and that's
creator,
exactly.
Yeah, Adam's creator got him a companion. God did it. Why can't you do it for me? Come on, Victor.
And that is exactly what the creature says. It's like, give me my Eve.
Yeah.
Because he's alone. He's lonely. He has no companion. He has no one like himself that he can talk to. He can't blend into society. Even his own maker won't receive him. And he's supposed to go off and be on his own with his wife and just be left alone and have a little society of their own. But
the horrifying thing about them, for Victor, of them sort of having it multiplying, being fruitful and multiplying, not something that Scott, what other sorts of themes did you pick up in terms of maybe some of the things that you've looked at for bioethics, or just because modern connections to the way that we think about either humanity or what we can do with science?
Yeah, I think that's a big theme, right? Is the overreach of science, is the idea that we can conquer death, and create our own. There's a movement called transhumanism, and in transhumanism, the idea is that we can use science and technology and genetic engineering and pharmaceuticals to extend life, and we can make ourselves super intelligent and all these different things. We're trying to remake ourselves. We're trying to take hold of our, if you believe in evolution, we're trying to grasp that engine and create ourselves into something new. And Frankenstein, that gives you all kinds of gist for that, right? I mean, the idea that he can take all these parts, and not even parts of in the book, he even use like animal parts, and creates this new thing. And I always think about the passage in Genesis where God says, "Let us make man." I mean, that is really the hubris of Victor, right? He's like, I'm going to make a man. And so a lot of the thinking that I do on this is, how do we find the importance of limitation? If we think that we should be limitless, that's the kind of power move that I think is very part of our culture today, that we think we should be able to overcome all suffering. We should be able to overcome all limitation. We can go to the stars, all this sort of thing. But as a Christian, I think there's something valuable in kind of focusing on the fact that there are things we cannot do. And I think that's the kind of humility virtue.
So then I guess there's some line, but I mean, because you're taking medicine and there's certain things that we do, surgeries and stuff to extend life, but I don't, I don't think anyone looks at that as like crossing the line and going too far.
No, I think it's good to do those things. It's just that I think we should realize that we can't use science and be so optimistic about medicine and so forth as if we are going to save ourselves. That we're going to be able, if we can, not to get political, but there's recently a politician in America who said, and I quote, "There are no problems too big that government cannot solve." Now, when you have an elected official who says there are no problems too big that government cannot solve, okay, he's not talking about science and technology, but that is exactly the kind of, that seems like a hubris that's just going to lead to totalitarianism.
Death? Is that,
yes,
is death a problem too big?
Or even poverty. I mean, there's so many things that it's almost such a statement that is hard to who could take it seriously?
Yeah. So I guess it's just how you it's the process and thought behind it is kind of how you look at it and go into it. I guess is kind of the deciding factor there.
And if I can, I just add that if we think that we should be able to overcome death, going hand in hand is the idea that we should be able to overcome suffering, right? And pain and suffering. And as a bioethicist, what I see in that is we can attach the word compassion to eliminating suffering in all kinds of ways that become inhumane, right? I mean, if someone's dying and our goal is to be able to use technology to eliminate suffering, because suffering is in itself just the worst evil ever, well, the best way then maybe is to kill them, right? So I see this kind of move in bioethics that we got to eliminate suffering. And when we can't, we eliminate the sufferer.
Which there's a deep irony there of this sort of dual purpose about ignoring death, moving away from death, conquering death, and at the same time embracing death on the other hand. And I think that's a deep irony in our sort of modern situation is that we can't, what we say our goal is, ends up being sort of the opposite in our actions. And I think that's there's a strangeness there, a deep unnoticed or sort of explicated irony to the way that we treat life and death.
Yeah.
So do you think we look at the monster as a human in the way that he was created? Just because he was created from all these parts and that he's essentially given life, is that all it takes? Especially like in the film and the movie. I mean, I think it is kind of, we perceive him as a human. I mean, we see him and we see him like all the others. I mean, he's ugly or whatever, but I think we kind of take him as a human, right? And I guess, I don't know, and it didn't seem like there was any like pushback from anyone else or like, hey, this thing you created, that's not human.
I mean, I think that's the question, because you remember he called it it. And,
right.
and
Yeah,
Elizabeth
he didn't even,
said,
true.
Elizabeth said, no, he's a he. He said, no, this is an it. Right. And so that raises the question as, well, what does it mean to qualify as a human being? The appearance and having the form and shape of a human being, does it mean that you have to have the reason to be able to articulate, which he seemed to lack, according to Victor? What does it mean to identify an organism as a human being? And
there is
that's the question.
There is one scene, I don't know if it's the brother or Elizabeth, who says, which of all the parts you took from all the people, in which part was the soul?
Oh, yeah.
There is that one,
and I don't think he answers it, right?
No, he's like, I think he says something about there is no soul or something. But I mean, but there is another part where the monster seems to be, who is he talking to? It's almost like a therapist. It's almost like he's undergoing therapy where maybe it's to the old man, where he says something like, I think it's to the blind man in the house, something about, I have all of he says, you don't remember anything. And he said, the creature says something like, well, I have sort of all of these different sort of bits of memory, sort of the sense of it that I remember. And so he seems to be sort of made up of the people from whom Victor took parts. At least that's the implication of that particular part. But the question is sort of left open. One, what does it mean to have a soul? Two, what does it mean to be human? And maybe for modern people, I wonder, I don't know what people I guess I haven't talked to enough sort of modern unbelievers in terms of what they think. Like if you were to hear that in this movie, which part is the soul? I suspect most people are probably on the side of Victor. No, there's no soul. That's not a thing that exists. So that's irrelevant.
I think it as a. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say a lot of people in bioethics world who are not Christians or religious in any way will just say, well, what identifies a human being is reason, the ability to be reason, to use reason. So the Princeton ethicist Peter Singer would say things like, an infant doesn't have the rational capacity as, say, a 13-year-old, so it doesn't have as much right to life, right? Because what gives you human rights is rationality. And so if you lose that, for instance, in a late stage dementia or something like that, then your life doesn't have the same meaning for someone like Peter Singer. And he wrote a book called Unsanctifying Human Life, because it's utilitarian. It's like suffering and rationality is the only thing that matters. There is no sort of metaphysical or higher meaning to being human for him.
It kind of seems like as the film goes on, the attributes that we kind of like associate with being human are kind of given to him more and more. And then I think kind of like it finalizes with this forgiveness thing, which I think, is a big, human attribute, just, and be able to, this compassion and kindness. And he's able to, because he does, I think he kind of gets that reasoning more and more. I mean, he starts off rough, but I think as the film goes on, and I think that's something that Del Toro would kind of admit throughout the film, is that he kind of becomes more human, and we're able to see more of those attributes that we associate with humanity, and we see more of those in him as the film goes on.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and maybe that's what you just said, Jay. Maybe that's what Del Toro is thinking. At the end, that expression of forgiveness and absolution, implies he has a soul, right?
Yeah.
That's a very soulish thing to do. Whereas with Mary Shelley, it's just like, well, it's a total tragedy. There is no kind of hope of him being something, better. But yeah, I think that's a good insight, what you just said.
Yeah, and it's also, because Victor kind of goes the opposite way as the creature or monster gets more humane. Victor, kind of goes down the other end, and even William, his brother, right before he dies, says, "You're the monster. Like, it was you all along."
What do you make of the? I mean, so Mary Shelley's novel is subtitled
Modern Prometheus.
Modern Prometheus.
Yeah.
Sort of stealing fire and giving it to human beings. So is that referring then to Victor, or in what sense is that applied? Would you say? I don't know if you've thought about that, to Victor or to his monster.
Yeah, I mean, so Prometheus is the one who in Greek mythology steals fire from the gods and gives it to human beings. And the idea is that fire is the basis of civilization, right? I mean, if you can't cook food, if you can't melt, you need fire to, make steel and all these kinds of things, that without fire, that's the key to civilization. And so this is super important, and it's something that's divine, and the gods don't impart it. Prometheus grasps it. And so in a way, Frankenstein is like grasping something that's not his. He's not staying in his lane, like Jay said earlier, for the purpose. He's got good intentions, right? The intentions are that, on a certain level, he does. He's very selfish and prideful, but on a certain level, he wants to overcome death. Who couldn't want to do that? It's just that my point is that good intentions, everybody has good intentions. It's just what, people do all kinds of atrocities in the name of helping humanity. So was it a good idea for Prometheus to give us the key to civilization or not? Has that made us more human? Has it made us more gentle? Has it improved our souls that we have this great civilization, whatever that means? Or should we have remained more primitive and maybe more humane?
I guess it comes back to, just because it's your will, it's what you wanted. It's not necessarily what God or the gods wanted. What their plan is not always our plan. What they want is not what we want.
Your ways are not our ways. Yeah, I think. I was impressed, just in general with, and maybe it's a matter of is what I'm looking for. But because it involves so many sort of fundamental themes of either humanity or Christian themes, maybe I'm looking for it more than I should be. But I mean, I think he there the fact I think that scene at the end, the forgiveness scene, like even though that's sort of not at all where the novel goes, there's something intriguing about that. At and is that the point that Del Toro saying that's when the creature becomes I'm a real boy, or
Referencing his Pinocchio film there.
Yes. Yes.
which I mean, honestly,
Well
no.
done,
On a serious note, I mean that's sort of he does a very much darker Pinocchio, but I mean that's all. There are similar, very similar themes. And Del Toro has said like that he wanted to make this since he was like a teenager or something. This particular film, but I mean, Geppetto makes Pinocchio, and he wants him to be a real boy, his own boy. So there are. It's interesting. I actually hadn't thought too carefully about that, but it'd be interesting to sort of run the difference between Del Toro's Pinocchio and Frankenstein versus sort of maybe the Grimm it's the Grimm brothers, right? Or maybe not.
Yeah.
The original Pinocchio story.
What's interesting between
probably not
between these two is that I think in both of them it's both the monster and Pinocchio, it's kind of goodness that allows them to be these quote unquote real boys, or be, real people. It's not they turn out like awful, evil people. And then, okay, well, now you're not a real person. But what, implying that people are good and that to be a real person, you have to have kindness and compassion and give forgiveness and get it.
Well, and with Shelley though, he has that. I mean, he's made with that. So she's implying that we're good at first. We come into the world as good, and people only become evil because they're made evil by other people treating them badly. And so he's already got
modern. That doesn't sound like a modern theme at all.
Well,
nobody thinks that today.
No, right? Yeah, is society the real problem?
Yeah,
the source of all our problems.
Nature nurture sort of thing, right? But so I'm looking up Pinocchio. Carlo Collodi wrote the novel, or a children's novel, but 1883, which the original
so after
Frankenstein was published
with 30s.
1818.
Oh, okay.
The first one was 1818.
Okay, quite a that's a pretty good time afterward, but still 19th century, still kind of reckoning with the sort of still in kind of a happy Enlightenment time where everything's going to get better and better, I suppose, to some degree. It would be somebody should do a doctoral dissertation on why on the 19th century creatures becoming human or something. But
yes,
there's quite a bit on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They're not modern ideas. I guess people have been thinking about this stuff for a long time, and what makes us human?
Well, I've been reading about the Jewish folklore of the Golem. Do you know this? Not like Gollum in the Lord of the Rings.
Right. Only a little bit. Made out of mud or something. Right?
Yeah. I mean, there's this kind of Jewish folklore. It's in Kabbalah, mystical Judaism, where the rabbi there's all this discussion about let us make man. And so they create him out of clay or mud, and then they try to put like Hebrew letters on him or whatever. And he comes to give him life, right? And he comes to life. But then what do you do with this thing, right? Now you have this thing, and it's intended to protect. They kind of mean it to be a protector, but then it kills everybody. And so the idea of artificially creating life to be either human or human-ish. Well, what do you do with this now that you have this? If and is it like you? Is it a thing like you? Right? It's not begotten, right? Begotten means it's a thing like you. It's made, not begotten.
It all comes back to the Jurassic Park quote. No, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should.
Yep. I mean, that seems to be relevant, ever relevant. But again, Pet Cemetery is that similar sort of thing on one level, right? Like where you think that you can sort of bring something back or make something, but on a certain level, it's never going to sort of, human beings are not everything, I mean, this is the Genesis story of Adam and Eve are made in the image and likeness of God, and yet they're deceived into thinking that if they do some other thing, they will be like God. And you have this just this the fact that humans are tempted to sort of do something about the way that they actually are already and try to go beyond their limits. As you were saying, I think this, I mean, the limit, that's really what the tree, I think, is about. It's about the limit. It's not so much about either, you hear sort of jokes about like poisoned fruit or enchanted fruit or whatever, but that's really missing the point, that God has set a limit around what creatures are and what God is, and the creatures are not God, and only monsters play God, Baron.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good quote. We're going to get a lot of mileage out of that.
Yeah. Huh.
I don't know if that's
it
in
might
the
be the
novel, but it's
title
good.
of this episode. I'm gonna put that.
Yeah. I think one of the ways to think of humanity is finitude, right? That's how you kind of come to terms with being a human being, is finitude, humility, a kind of, not that we don't strive to create medicines and things like this to help people, but just this kind of sense that, because that's how Adam and Eve were before the fall. Adam and Eve always had limitations. They were not, God, where they
Right.
could just do whatever they wanted. That's not what it means to be like God, at least as far as humans go.
Right. And yet we think it will be if we can overcome our limits. That's the truly divine thing. And, I think of Wendell Berry as probably one of the best, both fiction and nonfiction, about this, because there's one particular story where I think it's his father who's in the hospital and he's hooked up to these machines, and the son sort of breaks him out. I forget, I don't have this name of the story, but the son breaks him out of the hospital with kind of all these modern machines that are simply keeping his body going, and he takes him out into the woods to this cabin that they had been at. He cooks him a meal on this with this cast iron over a fire, feeds him this kind of last meal, and he dies. And the authorities are after him for sort of contravening the medical technological establishment, when maybe that's not what death is really about, or maybe it's not what life is about. And so I think that Wendell Berry has a way of kind of getting to the heart of some of those, the way that we treat medicine. Gilbert Mylander as well, for another author that sort of questions whether we have thought clearly about how we deal with medical, technological type things dealing with life and death.
Yeah, I like Wendell Berry a lot. And I won't go off on this tangent, but I've been reading a lot about Flannery O'Connor. No, I didn't mean your tangent. I'm not going to go on a different tangent.
No, okay. Yeah, I like Flannery O'Connor too. Go ahead.
That's all I was going to say, is that I've been reading about Flannery O'Connor and studying her a bit, and she talks, all of her stories have someone who has a disability or is very different body or mind, cognitive disability and stuff like that. And that's, so her big lesson is to come to terms with limitation, and then you're closest to God, right? You're about to encounter grace once you realize that you are, like Luther said, we are beggars. This is true. We're all beggars. This is true. So she wants to bring people, she wants to puncture our human optimism and our own ability to redeem the world. And so she writes these stories, which are very grotesque and often violent, in order to bring someone, just strip them down, strip them bare, until they just know, oh, I'm ultimately nothing without something else, right, to define me, and that would be God. So she brings in a lot of that, kind of a sense of not having medicine and science as being our God. That no matter what no matter what suffering we have to endure, we have to squeeze every second of life out of this existence.
Yeah, and I just to bring it back, one I'll say last thing about a novelist, but Dean Koontz may be her modern heir. I don't know if either of you read anything. I mean, almost every book that he writes has somebody who would be considered either disabled or less mentally capable or physically disabled in some way, where and usually they're being abused by somebody who's powerful, and but often they end up being in some way a hero or heroine of the story, because they're being treated by others. And the same, it's true in the Frankenstein books, but it's also true in other books that he has, where what people view as sort of just instrumental to some other greater goal, he says, no, these are actually people, and you can't just mess with them however you want. But okay, last thing. That's the last thing I'll say about Dean Koontz.
I'm glad you said something. I've heard of him, but I've never read.
Yeah, yeah.
Going off what you guys were saying about talking about limitations and the finitude, I think it's interesting how essentially the monster can't die. You know, putting him in this situation where he's trying to be human, and yet one of the main things that makes us human is, you know, dying. We live our lives and then we die, and yet he doesn't die. And I don't know, I haven't wholly fleshed this one out yet, but I think there's something there that trying to create this human, and yet this human essentially could live forever.
Yeah, that was an interesting detail. I mean, that's not in the novel, the idea that he can just regenerate almost instantly and he can't kill him. Because that's not how Mary Shelley writes him. It's just an interesting choice. Oh, the only problem is I got distracted when that happened, and I'm thinking like, you know, the Halloween movies, right? Where Michael Myers,
yeah,
right? He just keeps coming back, and you shoot him, you burn him up, blow him to pieces. He just keeps
throw him in the ice.
Yeah. Right. Nothing. You shoot him. Even he holds dynamite and it blows up and it doesn't.
Yeah, that was like kind of like the final test. Like, all right,
yeah,
this is the last thing.
Which he says, right? The monster says this when he's holding it, right? He says,
he's like, we'll see, man.
Yeah. But
now,
so there
what
is
does he say? Now run.
Yeah. So there is maybe it's a more sort of adds an almost like mythical symbolic sense to the creature, where it's not so much an actual creature, but somebody who's sort of pursuing Victor, right? I mean, almost, at least in terms of the imagery, you know, other people get in the way, they're going to be thrown overboard, or, you know, they're going to be destroyed. But in terms of Victor, he's after Victor, and that's sort of the and then Victor later is after him, at least in the timeline of the film. So there does seem to be with Del Toro this sort of crossing of the character arcs, where what was true of the other of one is now true of the other. I think that's something that's not really, at least I don't recall that as being, that's not really part of the story of the novel.
It is interesting though, because if Victor's trying to overcome death, he not only overcomes it by reassembling a bunch of corpses, the thing he makes can't die. I never even really thought about that. You know, he actually does overcome death in full, but that's a bad thing. Right, it ends up being a curse.
Yeah. Yes. Which you know, if they eat of the fruit of the tree of life, then they will not die, and that's bad. So there are all these kind of biblical allusions running through both the book and the movie, but maybe some more or distinct ones in the film.
Yeah. No, I think and I think they make it like fairly obvious. I mean, they. You know, you remind the atom and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, creature distinction is fundamental to the scriptures, and yet those who are not meant to be the creator, that's not gonna go well.
I mean, that's like the main idea here, right? Is that when you play God, I mean, well, as they say, the only monsters play God, but so I guess that's like what Del Toro's trying to say.
As one says, I don't. where that came
Don't
from.
do this. Don't do this.
Yeah, I wonder. I think there's still room. I've kind of wished for a while that somebody would use Kuntz's books to make. I said I wasn't going to mention it again, but I did, just because the sort of modernization of that legend or Gothic novel sense thing. I mean, I think there's still stuff to be explored, and maybe that's why. I mean, I feel like this is a pretty epic exploration of some of the themes of the idea or of the basic story. But
So what themes does Kuntz have that aren't here?
I think I believe he's Roman Catholic, so he kind of pushes it toward much more, I would say, on the side of how we can manipulate human nature or human beings to accomplish our own ends. So if I recall correctly, again, this is longer ago than I read Mary Shelley's novel, but I bet there's Dr. Frankenstein character is much more is depicted much more as ultimately evil, as the bad guy, as the villain in that. And then there's another guy who sort of kind of helps to free the creature character, if I recall correctly. But I think it's definitely much more on the side of like, here is somebody who explicitly wants to manipulate what it means to be human for his own ends. And it's not just to overcome death, but just however he wants to use the monsters to conquer, to get power, to get, it's that sort of thing. But and maybe I need to go back and read them again because it's been a while, but it struck me as sort of a very powerful use of that in a much more modern context, now. So I recommend.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you're it sounds like you're saying it's a series.
Yeah, it is. It's like 5 books. It's like 5. And
What?
Is there a
when
name
it's
to
called
the series?
Frankenstein. What?
When were
was
they
that?
written? Like recently? Last 10,
I want
20,
to
30?
I want to say early 2000s. I might be wrong about that. I mean, he's been writing probably for 30, 40 years. I think it's early 2000s, and so there's some of that, but really the technological type stuff is there. This is probably on my top 10 so far for the year. I think I was not disappointed. Although I was disappointed I missed it in the theater. The theater around here, at least, was after the film festival I came home and then it was not playing in the theater anymore here. So
What did they show? What they only show it for? I don't think they played it for too long.
Maybe it never came here. I don't know.
Because I think it was like a Netflix same day kind of thing. I think.
So it has like 29 million watches on Netflix so far, and it just came out like Friday, I think. So Friday as we're recording this. But so I wish that I'd seen it on the big screen. But I mean, it'll definitely be in the Oscar discussion. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's nominated for Best Picture. I don't think it would win that. It's probably better.
I could see it in the Best Picture category.
Makeup, costumes, set design.
Yeah.
Maybe even adapted screenplay. Because it would really be. We always talk about this like adapted screenplay when we get to the Oscar discussion. And I think this is one where you take a story, you elevate one or more of the themes and sort of make it your own. That seems to me sort of what that ought to be. But I don't know, Scott. Any other things that we didn't talk about that really sort of struck you or stood out to you?
No, not really. I mean,
Okay.
it's not Best Picture for me, but it's interesting, and I've enjoyed talking about it. I see more layers now. I just really want to see Mary Shelley's, not the Kenneth Branagh Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I'd really like to see it made.
Kind of just as it is. And
the story, because it's really, really tragic and powerful. And I guess my disappointment with this movie is it just seems like it was sanitized a little bit. That's how it felt.
Maybe the world's just not ready for it yet. So there's and I don't remember the name of it. Christian Bale's coming out with. Oh, it's called The Bride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
And that's coming out next year.
It's directed by
March.
Who's it directed by?
It is directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. Which I think is so it will be interesting to kind of put these two together and sort of see how the stories overlap, and I don't know if they will. I mean, I've seen the trailer to the.
It's got Peter Sarsgaard and
Yeah,
John Magaro, who was in Omaha.
which is
Who
one of
plays
my
the
favorite
bride?
films Of,
Jessie Buckley. She's kind of like an
been in-
indie.
yeah, but she's been in a number of things. She's always good.
She's great. Wait, she was
Was
in
it
Men?
Men? And then what was that other one that was very, very sort of off the wall where she plays?
I'm thinking of Ending Things,
I'm thinking of Ending Things,
which I loved.
Yeah, she's been in several
Talking.
things, and she just has a unique. She was in Fargo, the series. I think the most recent or the last one.
Lost Daughter too.
She plays the nurse in the Fargo series, who's also a killer. But she has a very unique bearing, and I think she brings a lot to the roles that she plays. But so anyway, it'll be interesting to see kind of how those compare. But thank you, Scott, for joining us and shedding some insights onto some of the bioethical, and also reminding us of the book, because I obviously had forgotten several of those things going on there. But anyway, so you can watch if you've already gone through this, then you've had spoilers. But you can watch Frankenstein on Netflix and tell us what you think. You can send us an email. You can comment on the posts. Follow, do those things. Smash like and subscribe, whatever. Share if you find anything of value, share it, which you will, because we have a guest. And then go to the website. You can find all the episodes and saintcinema.com. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks.